This is Stacy, and again with RE Titans, and on the other line is Kelly Tony with RE
Good
Titans.
morning.
Hey, Kelly, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are y'all?
I'm doing fine, and I think now that we've got our technical difficulties worked out, the wonders of modern technology, and we can get started. So, hello, guys. I think everybody can see the screen. We are going to, in the comfort of your own home, take you through the process of walking the property and taking rehab pics. Why do we take rehab pics? Well, there's a couple of reasons. One is that as our expert in construction, Pat Reisinger, who unfortunately cannot be here with us today, but as he points out very clearly, um, a picture tells 1,000 words, and you don't have enough space on your notepad to write those down. So it's really good when you're out there to take pictures and then you go back and you're looking at it and you're trying to figure out what your repairs are. There are things that you just won't remember, or when you're taking notes, you'll write a note down. I'm sure you've probably written that down before in a lecture, and you wrote a note down and it really made sense while you were looking at a slide up on a screen or something like that, and you get back and you're like, what does that mean? I'm sure some of you guys have done that. Kelly, you ever run into that before?
Just a few times, yeah.
Just a few times. So that's one of the main reasons we take pictures. The other reason we take pictures is that you can't get everybody that's going to be in your deal out to the property, and whether it's your lender or your partner or whoever it is, they're going to want to see pictures too. And part of the reason we take our own pictures, especially when you're looking at properties and pictures other people have taken, um, they're normally not going to show you the ones you want to see. They're going to show you the best side. Always have the best profile. Certainly true when the person's trying to sell the house, because they don't want you to see all the blemishes. Well, when we're doing a deal, we want to see all the blemishes, because if we don't catch those blemishes and those problems, that's going to cost us money. So, as we always do, and same thing with technology, now you guys are familiar with it, but give you a few seconds to look at the lawyer advised disclaimer. And so you guys know we're here to educate you and help you and teach you how to do it the right way. And then we have no idea what we're doing. But no, we do. We're happy to be here and move forward. So on with that, I have pictures that I want to bring up of a property that we have walked. I think we got that on there. Oh, we lost it. Let's go back again. Okay,
There it
can
is.
everybody see the pictures? It is. It's up there. So what we want to do when we start out, and we go through slowly, and a lot of times we don't do a lot of talking and everything until after we've kind of taken our pictures, is we start out with a front view of the house. And so kind of get an idea of what it looks like. And one of the things, we take it from all angles, and something that can be hard to do, depending on the neighborhood, is you want to kind of get some pictures of the surrounding properties. You'll notice how we kind of do that. And the reason is we want to kind of get an indication of what the property looks like compared to other properties. You have to be careful sometimes, though, because I've been out there taking pictures before, and the neighbor always curious. And sometimes they might not be that friendly. So depending on where you're at, it can be tricky. But we want to kind of get a different perspective, kind of look at the house overall and see what we see and see how it looks in regards to the other properties. One thing you don't want to do, at least on a lot of your pictures, is don't go up tight. You can always narrow down on those pictures and look at specific things, and we'll get into when we're taking pictures of specific things that we might be wanting to document. but make your pictures broad so you can get perspective. Your eyes being at 180 degrees, or as we get older, it shrinks down. But looking pretty broad, and that camera's only getting a little specific spot. And so when you go to show that picture to someone, all of that around you that you see and gives you perspective they can't see. So try to make those pictures broad, especially at least start broad and then go in tight. So next thing we start doing is we start walking the side, and you look at that picture and it's just a side view, but we're getting several things there. One is that I think you'll notice that we immediately can see that this house has gas service, and so that's something we're going to want to think about depending on what we're going to do with the house and what kind of repairs we're going to run into. Is that we see that we have gas service, and it gives a little perspective of the condition of the fence and how it looks. One thing that didn't come up on this house, but that we look for, is we're looking at those brick lines. And we're specifically looking at those brick lines to see if we see any waving in it. I know that you guys aren't here on voice, but Kelly, what are we talking about? We're looking at that brick line and we're trying to check it out for foundations.
Stacy,
Repair.
when you mentioned that, why don't you expand on that a little bit? What are you looking for exactly when you're looking at that brick line?
I'm looking to see if that brick line is level. I'm looking to see if there is any variation in that brick line that would indicate that the foundation is moved. Basically, when that foundation starts shifting, if you have foundation problems, that brick line, you look at it down your eyesight, is not going to be level. You notice in this brick line, we've got, pretty straight lines here. Doesn't look like we have any movement. We don't see any bust down here on the foundation. The other thing you might see is zigzag lines down the side of the wall, kind of following my cursor. I think we can you guys see my cursor on that? You
Mm-hmm.
might see a brick line that has been, and sometimes what it'll do is it might follow your mortar between your bricks, and so it might be a zigzag. Um, if you see bricks that have broken in half, that's definitely a indication that there could be some substantial movement in there. It's one thing to break the mortar. The mortar is weaker than the bricks, but if the bricks are decent quality and you've had enough shifting in there that it's cracked a brick, that's something we want to look at. So the
Yeah, I think
next
the
thing we
key that you
do,
hit on that is the zigzag lines on that. You're looking for that diagonal uh, those diagonal cracks along the mortar, and if they're substantial, that could be an indication of foundation issues.
well, that's a good point, because another thing that'll come up is that if you go too fast, and I've done this and walked back to it, is people will patch those. And if it's a good patch and it blends in with the mortar, you might not see it. But I've walked back and seen patches and then, oh, whoa, wait a minute. We need to go back and look at this a little bit better, or maybe we need to get our engineer in there to do an engineering report. So as we walk down the side of the house and we've got our broad picture there, one of the things we always want to make sure and do is take a picture of this electrics. And I actually noticed when I was going through my pictures, but I looked at it before, is that if you're not sure, you want to take a picture of that brand of that electrical box on the outside. Now, in this particular case, this box was not one of the ones that have been discontinued and that you're required to replace by national code. But I could tell you right now, on your older houses and even some of your younger houses, if you see FPE, which is Federal Pacific, that box will need to be replaced. And so that's the we want to factor into our rehab budget, or point out to whoever we're working with, like our expert Pat Reisinger when he does the rehab budget. is that, if that electrical box needs replacing, that's going to be a cost. And just because it looks good doesn't mean that it's something that will pass inspection and pass code. So in this case, I took a picture of the electrical box. The panel was good. The panel was good. Um, Look at the breakers and everything there, and then move on.
Stacy, we had a couple questions real quick. Pamela asked, what will an engineering report provide us related to possible foundation issues? If you suspect that there are foundation issues that you, as you're walking a house and you feel slopes in the slab as you're walking through the interior, or if you see those cracks on the exterior, a lot of people will make a mistake, but they'll get a foundation company to come out and give you a quote to repair the foundation. But the best practice on that is to go ahead and hire an engineer to do a study, because they will tell you exactly if the foundation is moving, if it's within tolerance or not. It will give you an idea of how long that foundation before you may have to do a repair, but it will also tell you exactly how many piers and borings they will need to do to repair the foundation. A lot of times when you deal with a foundation company, especially on the retail side, it's extremely expensive. With our contractors, even then, they will come in and say, oh yeah, it needs X amount of piers. But when you get an engineering report done, that tells you exactly how many piers need to be done, and it will also give you a report to pass along to your buyer to say, hey, we had the study done correctly, we had the repairs done, and usually those warranties will pass along to the buyer.
Well, one thing I know, and we can get some information for you guys that work with us on the engineer that we use. One thing you could do to save money is that on the engineer report, and there's actually two ways to go about this. One is that we can get an inspection by the engineer, and I think the last one we spent about $145 on. And so they'll come through and do an inspection, and they will give you an opinion, or that might be put a little bit too strong, but they will give you their thoughts on it, and that will be some feedback. And then you can use that to go back, especially if you buy the property and have the foundation repaired. They'll come back for the additional money, which is, your full engineering report with their certification on it, to certify that work's been done properly. We will use, in some cases, because one of our foundation repair people will come out and do it for free and give us their idea, and at least give us a ballpark without having to spend money on the engineering, either preliminary or full report. It just depends on the deal, where we're at, and how comfortable we feel about it. But one big difference, and Kelly's pointing out, while the engineering report is a certified inspector, they have to be licensed by the state, and that is something that is kind of your neutral between foundation companies, sellers, buyers, whichever position you're in at this point, to say whether this foundation is within tolerance and whether repairs, either previous, new repairs, or whatever, are proper or not and pass code. So I think I've addressed some of those. As far as I know, there's a question here about cracks. Okay. That's really, tolerance. I think it's what, inch and a half within 30 feet. And I'm just trying to remember. It's either 2 inches or 1.5 inch movement within 30 feet. But getting in those details, we've seen plenty of those reports. We fall back to them, and it just depends on what we see in the property, how much we're going to do, and what we think, and whether this house is going to be worth the investment or not.
And Christy had a question on the electrical box. Going back to that, how do you know if it's going to pass code or not? What were the two the ones that were discontinued that we
Federal
normally see that you do them automatically.
Federal Pacific. Maybe if you can chance, you might be able to Google it while I go through. But Federal Pacific is one of them, and I'll have to think. Pat would know these off the top of his head. We called Pat on his out, but I think we can go back and get that information. Let's go ahead. We're walking back around the front of the house, and this is where we start, just like I said, we start broad, and let's start taking in detailed pictures. So we're going to start moving to the garage, and you'll see some things, and even the roof as we move forward. I think in this case, this house, the driveway was okay. So, it's really with your eye, what are you starting to see, and are there things we need to hone in on other than things that we're typically always going to want to do, which is look at some of the things like our electrical and into our AC and other things later. So normally a good practice is to walk your house, especially when you get in your inside, from left to right, or at least kind of follow a path that the person look at the pictures can do that. So now we're kind of back on. We're kind of looking at the roof. In this case, the house looks pretty good, but we're looking at our fascia, look at our trim, see what kind of condition it is, if anything jumps out. And if we see something that jumps out, we're going to want to hone in on it. If things look good, we'll keep on going. Now coming back around the other side, you'd see up there, roofs had a little bit of wear there. Pretty good condition. Same thing, look at the picture. I mean, we could see our flower beds, our windows, everything that if we were writing notes, the picture just really brings it back to life. I'm gonna kind of move around the house. We're moving now up to the front door. You notice several times in these pictures, I'm catching our address plate, and that can be on different places in a house. But here's the thing: if you're out there taking several hundred pictures of several houses, and then you're going back to look at these, if you started out and making a logical order, your address will be kind of your trigger. Say, wait a minute, which house was this compared to the other? And if you notice in there, I catch it several times. So if I couldn't remember, at least I know which section this is and start in the next one.
Hey, Stacy, Christy asked if can you tell if it's a good roof or not? There's a couple of ways to look at that. When you're looking at a roof, look at all the different roof lines. If you see any waves throughout that roof, that's an indication that you've got some issues. If you see some curling at the end of your shingles, where the where that gutter is, or where your fascia boards are running across, that's another indication. If you see some pretty good staining, it could tell you, at least give you an indication of how old that roof could be. And then there's other ways to look in the attic for issues. If you're looking at that main beam where those and Pat would probably kill me because I don't have the correct terminology, but if you can see where the cross beams are meeting that main beam in the in your what is that, the eave there in the attic, if you start seeing those pulling away, then you've got, well, that goes back to some foundation issues, but those are some of the ways that you can begin to see that you've got some roof problems. Or if you see a very thick roof, if you might be able to tell if if the original shingles have been redone over the existing shingles.
That's correct, and that's something we look for inside the attic as well, especially to make sure that there hasn't been overlays in where shingles have been laid over shingles, or especially shingles have been overlaid over shake or wood shingles. So we're going to start moving inside. Notice up here looking, that appears that they, if I recall, they put hardy, and that's a hardy plank type soffit vent there. Start looking around at the condition of the entry, the door. Um, we're going to start moving. This house was in pretty reasonable condition, and Kelly, I think I'm getting a little echo on you there. And so when we look in, we're starting to look here for cosmetic things. Move a little bit further in here. Now you notice the house is in pretty good condition, but you start looking at things, and that's where I want to take pictures and noting things that we see. You notice there's a little bit of damage here in the corner. We got some stains down in the carpet. I think you notice there's some stains here in the carpet. So, you know, we're going to start thinking about if we're going to rehab versus rent this property. I think actually this property, we're looking at a potential rental. But, you know, is the flooring going to need to be replaced, or is it going to be something we can clean? I think another thing is that when you look at rentals, and one thing that we lean towards is tile or vinyl plank or some kind of floor that's much more durable and doesn't have these issues. Obviously, this is an owned house, but obviously you can see that if you have a renter in there, you know, one of the things that you're going to want to accrue for in your maintenance will be that the carpet most likely will have to be replaced, if not super cleaned, when you go from one tenant to the other. The flip side is you get a good tenant in there and it's carpet, then you know, let them take responsibility for how it's going to look and appear for them as they're in the property. So we start moving back around, and I'm kind of taking a 360 view of the house just to give perspective of what it looked like from that hallway. I probably had that other picture out of order, but start moving around, you know, to give a look of what you see when you walk in the hallway here. And then coming back down that hall, that picture, this would probably be more appropriate there, but start looking, giving perspective. You can see there's a bedroom here, a bedroom there. I believe when we go around the corner, there was a bedroom there as well. This was a bedroom, two bath. Well, I guess we'll see that here in a minute. This isn't unusual. This actually isn't too bad compared to some properties we see, but I had a little bit of trouble getting in the door. The main thing is I want to get perspective. What's the condition when we're starting to look at, you know, are we going to have any sheetrock work? The condition of the paint. Most likely we're going to repaint the whole house, and normally do in all these properties unless they're just pristine. You either find that the paint's not in too good a condition, or you find eye colors. One thing that we do, and Killam Beige is the color that's very popular here, is that whether it's a flip or whether it's a rental house, we want to be neutral. We want to capture 80% of the market. There's going to be, you know, 20% of the market that just has to have their particular colors, and they can go back and repaint it. But, you know, we want to be attractive, you know, to the most buyers or renters. So we're moving on here to the next room, kind of the same problem. Couldn't get into well. Well, I guess we're not on speaker. Anybody notice though up here? One thing we noted is we don't have a electrical fixture, fan or light up here in the ceiling. So that's something we're going through our pictures, and then we're taking our notes on our notepad is that we have this bedroom number 2 here that doesn't have a electrical fixture. In the case of a house like this, and when you get into these positions where you can't get into the house particularly, you know, what I'll do is take the picture, at least give us a general idea, because you can kind of get a perspective of the size and everything like that, and that's a pretty large bed. And then I'll step in and look, and if I see things that are a particular note that we need to take into account, then however I can, I'll swing my camera around and get those pictures. you know, if the room looks pretty consistent with the rest of the house and there's nothing of particular interest that we need to note, then I'll just keep on going. Next, we move into the bathroom. Um, Before we move in here, there's several things that we always try to do. We want to get a picture of what the toilets look like. We're going to take some pictures under the cabinets and specifically take a picture of the tub because the things we're looking for is, do we need to replace them or can we clean them depending on where we're going to rehab or rent them, and uh, and then, you know, the style and everything, and, you know, to give us an idea of what we want to do in here. So you'll notice, as I said, and fortunately, some pictures are safer than others, but the commode looks in pretty decent shape, especially for a rental. Give us a little bit of idea of, you know, what kind of condition the tile and the tub is in here. Next, I move under and look at the stops. This is really critical. We want to see what condition the plumbing is and whether these are old broken stops or whether these stops need to be replaced. This being a newer house, normally we should see pretty good stops in here. Here's kind of our default. In fact, I know not too long ago, Pat, we told our plumber, if there's any question, we want the stops replaced. You know, water leaks can cause some of your biggest damage in the house. Stops are expensive. Having your plumber fix the stops is not that expensive. It is not worth the damage. It's just a great insurance policy to get it done. So we want to see in there so we can tell our plumber what to do and estimate that in our budget.
Stacy, looking at that picture, if you were in an older house, can you tell if that house has, what type of plumbing they have? I mean, obviously we know that newer houses are using PVC, and now we're going to that PEX system. But in the older houses, you get into the cast iron plumbing and things like that, which we know will deteriorate. Will you see that coming out underneath the sink like that?
Yeah, there's blue right there. This was a PEX house. And you see the blue for the cold line right there. And that's probably,
Right.
you know, what we look for versus, you know, how detailed we get. But yeah, this is a PEX house. There's your blue. That's your connection there for PEX. And I guess that's one of those experience things. But yes, but then we would see either copper or cast iron right here. And certainly it's all cast iron. We're going to have to take that into account when we're putting our plumbing budget together. So I think, can you guys see the blue in that on that picture? Kelly, are you able to see the blue? I'm sure that's blue
Yeah.
pipe right there. So it sticks out. Now you can see our seals. We don't see any leakage. We see some coloration around the seals. Everything looks pretty clean. This is actually a pretty decent house um, for the most part. Next, we are looking out down our hall. As you can see, we definitely had a lot of discoloration. Kind of getting an idea of what the mirrors, the cabinets, uh, you know, captured in here, what kind of fixtures we have on our plumbing, and then, you know, just little things. I mean, we've got um, nickel, brushed nickel doorknobs on this, and so, you know, things that we're looking in back that we might either make a small note or a mental note, you know, that we're all consistent. Older houses, a lot of times we'll see inconsistency in the door types and the doorknobs and stuff, and we'll catch that going back through our pictures. We can tell right here that we have a more modern cabinet, so, you know, it's not looking like we're going to have to replace those or resurface those. Let me back up on my other picture and see real quick. Yeah, the plug is far enough away, but that's another thing right here on this picture is that we look for, and boy, that one's pushing it right there. Most likely, we would tell our electrician come back in and put a GFI, but that's the other thing is we're going to be looking at these plugs and taking pictures to see if they're GFI circuits, being that they're around a wet area. Notice that obviously the carpet was something that caught my attention quite a few times. So next, going down the hall, kind of capturing, like I said, what the doors look like, are any busted doors, the type of hardware it's on there. Closets seem to be in good shape. Same thing. If we've seen some problems, one thing I do is look up in there and we didn't have the problem is looking for leaks, especially in your hidden areas, because sometimes during construction, certain mechanicals and stuff, and cubbies like closets and everything are in the same place, and so peek in there to make sure that there isn't hidden leaks or things that indicate either that there was some plumbing or roof issues that come up. In this case, I recall it was clean, and so wasn't really an issue. Same thing. Every one of these rooms were tough to get in. Notice we did have a light fixture in there, but was in pretty decent shape. And this was going back to the other room. Apologize. I guess my pictures. This picture should have been with the other one, but making sure that I note that we need a light fixture there. So we're going to start walking back down our hall. Notice we've got our attic ladder right here. We'll come back to that here at the end of the tour. Notice as I was coming back down the hall that there was some more damage. This isn't major, but just kind of gives us a feel for the condition of the house as far as what we're going to have to be doing cosmetically. Come back out, start taking a picture of the great room here. Um, we have ideas we want to paint cabinets or keep them. Looking at what we see here, just kind of go through these for a second. Taking different angles, both to get a perspective so you understand what the house looks like, and then also obviously, for our notice we have the TV that was hung up there, so tells us it is there, but we're going to have a little bit of electrical that we need to look into. Don't recall anything in this room other than I don't like some pets. Notice there, so probably adds to what we've seen going on the carpet. This house actually didn't have any pet odors or anything, but we see a cage. We're going to start looking to make sure that there isn't pet damage. If we can kind of keep walking through there. The other thing is it told me when I walk out the back door, even though we were told the house was clear, I want to be careful and certainly don't want to run into an unfriendly animal. Always very careful walking out on the properties, especially if you know that they're still occupied, and look before you step. I know the other day we were looking at a house that had a pretty aggressive dog that was tied up, but even though we felt like or understood that he was out of the way, was a little closer than we realized, and that's always a hazard of the business. Now we're coming back in. We're going to swing around and get one more perspective and then start heading into the master bedroom. Sometimes it's hard to get a full perspective on these larger rooms with a tight door, but we start moving in here and kind of give an idea of what the room looks like. Notice there's still more staining down here. All of our blinds have looked in pretty good condition. We're looking at what money can we save by keeping what we have. Our intention is not to replace everything, but to only replace and spend money where we have to. I think that brings up a good point just in rehabbing in general. It's very easy to look at a property and get emotionally attached to the property and think about what you would want to do to the house if you were going to live there. Unless you intend to live there, we need to look at it as a business and what do we need to do to the house to make it attractive and sellable. And so when we're doing that, we want to look at what can we retain, what can we salvage, what can we, we don't want it to be crap, but we're in a business, and every dollar we're spending, if it's not going to make a difference in selling that property faster or for more money, then we don't want to spend that money, because we're in this to recondition the house, make it attractive to a renter or to a owner occupant. And if there are things we can keep, in this case, I recall these blinds were in great shape. They're pretty modern. We're not going to replace it. Same thing with our fixtures and everything else. Obviously, carpet, I think that's a good indication of something that, if we want to sell it fast and for the highest price in this house, we were going to want to replace it or rent it.
That's a good point, Stacy. And same along the same lines, if you're doing this for a flip, you're going to want to go in and look at your comparables and take a look at the pictures of what recently sold. What are those houses comprised of? Hardwood floors, tile, granite in the kitchen, things of that nature. So if you're doing a house in a neighborhood and you want to put in hardwood floors throughout, but every house in the neighborhood is selling with carpet, you don't want to go to that expense. So you don't want to overdo it, and you don't want to underdo it.
No, that's an excellent point. If I can pull a link and put it in the chat box, see if I can do this. I watched, there's a guy, I think Phil is out of Florida. Gosh, I can't ever say his last name. Yeah, if you'll go to our RE Titans page, um, I have a video that talks about that I shared from a national guy about our house flipping TV shows helpful for investors to watch. And he pointed out the same thing, exactly the same thing that you're saying, which is, you know, all these shows we see and the money they make, they're way overdoing these houses. And one of the things he said is exactly what you said. Look at MLS or go to some of the new homes and look at what they're doing in the neighborhood and in the area. They're in that business, and they have, if they're doing volume in there, they know what it takes to sell. Don't go under, but certainly go over. And in some cases, in a rehab house, we can actually go a little under as long as it's good quality and it's new, but certainly don't go over what they're doing. That's a great point, Kelly. That's a good video. You guys ought to go check out on the RE Titans Facebook page, and it was posted in the last couple of days. I think we can keep our go ahead, see the carpet. So now we're coming into the master. The master is something that we always take a little bit harder look than the other bathrooms. Not that the other bathrooms aren't important, but the master bedroom is the person paying the bills most likely, and we want to see what this looks like and make sure that it's attractive to whoever we're selling or renting the property to. So we get a good perspective of how it fits in the house. How's the layout look as far as sellability? And then we start moving in here to the master bathroom. Same thing, so I'm taking a little bit more detailed picture. We got a jacuzzi tub there. In this case, what we're going to do is we're going to make sure, we're going to want to push the button and make sure it works, because that tells us, do we have a expense or do we have a, something that's attractive? If this is a rent house and the jacuzzi works, that's great. If it doesn't work, it's not a problem. If we're going to flip this house, then obviously it's something that we're going to want to work, because an owner occupant isn't going to want to have, a broken jacuzzi. In this case, hopefully it does work, because that would be a pretty good expense to have to move all this out. But we see we've got nice tile, soap dishes. Looks like this could all be cleaned up and made very sellable. Same thing, look in the bathroom. There's a little bit there, but that seems to be just normal lack of cleaning. We'll reach in, turn on our mixer, see how that's doing, especially if we're not thinking, or this in the house, we're going to be hopefully spending a ton of money on our plumbing. Looking at our seals, If I got a little more, I didn't go detailed there. I think we are okay there. Same thing looking at our toilets. Toilets can kind of be tough sometimes or little private toilet areas. Coming back, closet was in there. Closet was decent size there, but it was a little bit hard to get into. You notice that I have got my picture here, and I'm all ready to take pictures underneath the sinks. Same thing. I go in. We've got the Pics. All the lines look good. Seals look good. Same thing over here. But here's the thing, even though this house was in good condition, and looking back, if you ask me from memory and we're going through and doing house, I won't remember. So still take the pictures, even if it looks good, even if you think, hey, this isn't a problem, because you're not going to remember if you're doing this business, one house from the other. And you don't want to have to go back out to the house, and you certainly don't want to either miss it or price too much in if if it doesn't. So go ahead and take pictures even if it looks good. We'll walk back out. We're going to start moving around, moving into our kitchen. I think we're doing pretty good on time. Kind of get a general perspective. One thing I'm looking for, which I'm not worried about this right here, but the condition of the appliances and whether they're matching. And our older houses, we're normally going to lean to that we're going to replace the appliances. But if it's a rental house, then we'll take a little bit different perspective. I see I have a question here. I'm going to hit here in just a minute, and then we'll look at countertops. So the question is, do we turn on all the plumbing and flush the toilets to check? It depends on the house. Yes, in this kind of house, we'll turn it on, see how it runs, just real quick. Everything in this house was in pretty good working order. In our older houses, that's a cautionary statement. Depends on whether you're planning to replace the plumbing or not. One thing that we will do is run a simplified drainage test to see if we think it's draining. We might go through and fill up the sinks and the commodes and let it drain to see if we think we're going to need to deal with any underground plumbing issues. That's a call based on the house, and sometimes it's the utilities won't be on. But it does tell, like Kelly said, what kind of pressure it has, how it's running and everything. We're going to move through here. As you notice, we've got, in this case, black, black, and black. Now, this is where we're going to want to look at our comparables. Are we renting or selling this? And, what do we see in the surrounding houses? We certainly don't want to spend the money on stainless steel if this is the standard. On the flip side, we don't have white or black front ceramic finishes on appliances if everybody else is selling stainless steel. This house again was in pretty good shape, but we'll check the cabinets and the hardware. I think that kind of ties in with plumbing, make sure we're not seeing things that are loose or sagging. We'll look up here, see what it looks like in regard to the condition, whether it's been worn out or whether it's in pretty good shape that we don't have to do much. On these prefab cabinets, we'll want to look for peeling, things of that nature, depending on what they're made to make sure that we don't have any excessive wear and tear there. Some of that kind of giving a perspective of the house. Moving through, but as you notice, I mean, we take a lot of pictures, look at different angles, give you different perspectives, whether it's, things we're looking for as far as damage or just giving a perspective of the house. And a lot of times you look at these pictures, you'll see something that you didn't notice in the walkthrough. I think I can keep on walking here. Obviously, you can see, looking at the condition of these, your garbage disposal here, see if we notice anything for leaks. You can see the blue and the PEX again. everything looks pretty good down here. Same thing though, does it need a new disposal or not? Well, I mean, we've got a good picture. It seems like that this is in good condition. I will open, I think I have the pictures there, and take pictures inside of the washer and the oven. Same thing. What do we need to do there? As I said, look in there, this looks like, for a rental standpoint, these grates either can be replaced or cleaned. We have a cleaning person that does a pretty thorough job versus your normal cleaning lady, and so we'll just get them. Most of this looks like it can be cleaned up and retained in the event that we are renting this, which was the idea. Um, Looking at this oven, um, and appliances in general, if we were going to sell this as a flip, I would most likely, I mean, people are looking for new, and the cost differential between the two is just not worth it. If you notice some inch there, I remember quite a bit of, minor, but some minor sheetrock damage. Same thing getting into our utility room. Looking, y'all see there's going to be, but most of this we've been seeing is cosmetic and paint on this house. Same thing, look at our
Stacy,
plumbing.
couple of
Go ahead.
couple of quick points too, just little tricks of the trade, depending on what, would you go into bathrooms and you're looking to do a flip and what you can and cannot do, or even if it's a rental, like bathtubs that look really, really bad that you think you may have to replace. I mean, those things can be refinished and resurfaced. Uh, shower floors can be resurfaced. So there's a lot of ways that you can go in when you're looking at a house. It doesn't necessarily have to be replaced, but that you can repair and do some things to make it look new again and last. So
No, great points. Out here, as you notice, these guys, now, another thing that in doing this, we realized is that if we bought this property, this house versus another house, we realized we got to factor in these people are going to take a little bit of time to move, or it's going to cost, if we're going to hire someone to help them, they got a lot of stuff. And most likely in this case, they're not leaving the stuff. Now, we've had other houses where they've had just as, if not more stuff in the house, and they totally walk away from it. One thing we normally do is that if we have our demo person, we'll try to, if there's some value in there, trade out some of those items for the cost of our demo. One thing I don't do, and I've been asked before, and Kelly and Pat, we've all been asked, is that people will want to trade their stuff or their junk for a higher price. Um, there's always exceptions, but most of the time we don't get into that. There's only so many businesses you can do, and being a flea market or a salvage resale shop is not one of them. But you can use it to barter with your demo people. A lot of times they like to do that. I did check the garage door, even though I didn't show it open, make sure the opener was working in the control. Now we're getting into another one of our mechanicals, like our electrical and our HVAC, that we want to see. Make sure we take some good pictures of our water heater. In this case, it was in the garage behind this little wall. Nice. Got to check the pan out down there. Try to get a picture of the specs on it. See if we see any leaks. And then we have in here the build date. I know it's kind of hard to read, but it tells us how old this water heater is. And this is either 05 or 6. And on the pictures we can scan and we can get it. But it tells you where it was made, what the year is, gives you the capacity and all your details. There's your capacity there. It's a natural gas type. So it tells you all the details, and then making the decision whether you keep or replace. Most water heaters, though, when you start hitting 8 or 10 years, they're going to want to be replaced. if it's a flip. If rental, look at it. If it's in condition, it's heating and it's working well. Yeah, well, that's $1,000 you can save. Back up, you notice take the controls, look at the piping, everything's looking clean. Down the water pan, we don't have any rust, any apparent leaks. A little bit more of the garage. In this case, everything looked good, but we do kind of look at, what kind of condition the rails are on. Everything is moving up and down. The springs look good. I'm going to go ahead and move a little bit faster because we want to get into this last part, which we saved for last, which is our HVAC unit. In this case, the HVAC was outside, so when we get outside, we'll take a picture of this, but be careful doing this. We want to the extent we can and safely, get up in this attic and take pictures. If it isn't safe, we've got to look at a different way of getting that information, but don't get up in that attic and have an accident. In this case, we got a new house, new ladder, so I felt safe heading up in there. To the extent it's possible, I'm trying to get pictures of the ducts. Like Kelly said, the decking and everything, looking peaks. This house has a lot of junk everywhere we go. Same thing, kind of look at the duct work. As you can tell, this is pretty new duct work, looks to be in good conditions. But on the other houses, if you see duct work like this on a 30-year-old house, it's been pretty recent. If not, you need to take a look at it and decide, and we're going to have to make some decisions on whether we need to replace or not. We have a great AC guy, though, that is very good about salvaging the good parts and only replacing what's necessary in AC work. Same thing, let me look back there as we're looking at, we see we got our insulation in there. How's our insulation look? Is in good condition, it's not peeling off. You have your gas line right there. Spin back around, the same thing. Got pretty good AC there on the eaves. Our ductwork looks in good condition. Looking at the see they've got both blown in and layered insulation. Everything seems to be sealed up pretty good. So we got a lot of thick insulation there with all of our pipes. Checking out our duct work. I'll come back around here, and we should hit the furnace in a minute. Now it's a little more difficult, but I'm trying to get the same thing like we do on our plumbing. What year is it? Is there any issues in there? Do we have any seal issues? You can see the seal, are there any broken seals? And I take that back, we had it outside after that. Actually, the furnace, in that case, I didn't attempt to get any closer because I could tell from my eyesight that it was pretty good position, pretty good condition. So now we're going to go out here and finish our outside inspection in the backyard, looking at the condition of our fence. I'll take some good pictures of the siding, make sure the issues with the siding. Windows, notice we have a screen there that's off. I'll follow on around. Just some detailed pictures. You notice, though, we have a door issue here, and I'll take some more of that. Obviously, this door had been broken and been replaced. So we're going to want to note that when we look at, what money we've got to spend here on our doors and hardware. I come back around that, but I want to get. Kelly was telling you, we're looking here. I mean, these aren't in bad condition here. We're looking for, things are in pretty good shape. Like Kelly said, you look at your oh, now I just drew a blank on your transition there. It's not your E. Come around, look at the siding. Same thing, looking down this wall. And then the main thing I'm headed here is I want to see our AC unit. I'm going to take some of that. This one's obviously fairly new. It's got a good pad there. come around the same thing. I'm not an expert on AC, but we've got all the details of this AC unit that we can share with our AC contractor to get his feedback. We've got the brand and the model. So we can always take that and take those pictures and just send those particular pictures to any of our subcontractors and say, hey, you know, give me a thought, give me your feedback on that. Looking at it's got separate cutoff there. I noted that. I don't think there was any, you know, but if we've seen a lot of this, we might want to check into if there have been some water issues. I'll move back around the house. Same thing. I'm just taking pictures to make sure that there's nothing that we want to do. Now you notice there had been a little bit of splitting there. Nothing major. You can see a little bit right there, but just, you know, keeping that into account when we're thinking about our exterior paint and siding. You always see the oddest things out here. I forgot what I don't know what this electrical cord was doing, but interesting ingenuity that you will see at some houses. We're going to keep on moving in respect of everyone's time. One thing I point out, in this case, we're going to leave it alone because we're not replacing the roof. But if we do replace the roof, we always get rid of all this cabling and this exterior wires and stuff. We don't want it. We'll let the new homeowner decide what they need and want. And you know, this person had dish, and the next person's going to want, you know, cable, and the other person's going to want DSL. Coming back in the house, wrapping up, noticing that I think it was probably from the pet that was inside. But we do have that, you know, we're going to put an exterior door on this. We're going to want, you know, something that matches up. I know I had in my notes we had some problems with that door, you know, in the threshold there. Yeah, come back here. So we're going to have to, you know, we're going to want to fix all that. Now, if it's a rental, we might just see if our guy can fix it without changing it. But if this was a rehab, we'd definitely replace all that and make it look nice. Coming back outside, notice I was able to sneak me a pic. I remember the person across the street was watching, but kind of snuck peek of the rest of the houses and just, you know, give us perspective. This is a cul-de-sac house and how the neighborhood looks. So when we're doing our comps and stuff, you know, we kind of have an idea of what we're looking at. So with that, I think we've had Q&A this time. Appreciate you guys. Hope you've learned something from that. We're definitely here to answer your questions, and that is, we'll have that out there so you can look at it again. But I think, you know, I think there's 121 pictures there, and you know, take your time, take good quality pictures. Remember to hit all your major mechanicals, your electric, your plumbing, your HVAC. Within that, you know, your furnace, your condenser unit outside, your water heater. Make sure and take pictures of things like your inside your cabinets to see what kind of stops and turns you have on there. If those are all good, inside of your major appliances. And you know, every house is going to be different, but make sure you get the details so when you're either looking at yourself or sharing it with someone like that or us or with your lender, they have a good idea of what the house is too, and all of us together can help you make good decisions on your rehab and good decisions on your purchases. With that, I'm Stacy again with RE Titans, and my partner Kelly Tony that's with us today, and then we have Pat Reisinger as well. Kelly, anything to add before we sign off?
I don't believe so, Stacy. I think we covered it. Appreciate everybody's attendance, and call us if you got any questions.
We will see you guys next time. Have a good day.